The JOJOLands just dropped an absolute banger of a chapter to kick off this new year, which throws us right into a standoff with Howler, showing us not only his stand's full design, but also a decent look at its ability that gives us plenty to dig into until it's seen again. As by the end of this chapter, the Mega Yacht arc is officially over, leaving us with more than a few twists that will shake up the entire structure of this story going forward from the consequences of this encounter. So let's dive right in, starting with the cover page, which reveals some other JoJo related news. Of course, the Steel Ball Run anime is premiering on March 19th, and we have the announcement of a new JoJo magazine coming shortly after on the 23rd. So turning the page, we are welcomed into the chapter with the scene being set, showing us the impact of Jojo's rainfall just below deck from his attacks these last couple chapters, showing that the droplets are seeping into the ship's hold and breaking right through the floor, which is some foreshadowing for later on. And on the other side of the page is a recap of the Howler family and Akka's position, who is the eldest son born into a blessed era built off of the good fortune of Letrado's will, which was his super great grandfather's lava rock he found on the northern slope of Hulalai, imbued with this primordial energy to control the flow of monetary value in the world. And it's now Akka's era that the family is without this safety net, which isn't going so well. And in the following page, we see this is actually a glimpse into Howler's mind, as he is reminded of all the bad things happening to him, being accused of weapons manufacturing and the fall of his subservient guards. So with no one left by his side, it's finally time for Akka to take action, and immediately brandishes his stand while demanding Jojo returns the rock. And we'll get a better look at his stand later on, but you can already see that there's been a substantial redesign from the first time we saw it, but still retains that core design element of the rock-like texture around its body. So while Howler is ready to fight here, Jojo has already planned 2 steps ahead and worked out his escape route, as everything on the boat begins to shift starboard, and Jojo tells Howler he's properly screwed, as what we were seeing at the start of the chapter was Jojo intentionally persisting his reign through the boat in order to sink it, and in a calamitous synchronicity, the government starts to swarm the yacht with the Navy boarding via helicopters and begin to arrest Howler. So I thought the chapter title, Sinking Howler, just meant we're taking his money, but it turned out to be literal, which creates this awesome narrative, thematic, and visual cohesion of Howler sinking in body and spirit. So this whole situation has garnered quite a bit of attention from the public, with witnesses and the news reporting on the situation at the docks, which also acts to remind everyone why exactly the government is going after Akka in the first place. So be it by Jojo's forethought or the power of the lava rock, Howler is utterly defeated as the Navy start to beat the shit out of him and reveal that they were given direct orders from the president to detain him, which might seem a bit extreme, why the president cares about some illegal business in Hawaii, but it's revealed by the newscast that through satellite analysis, it appears that the Howler company is manufacturing intercontinental ballistic missiles, which would become a matter of national security and a defiance of the highest order against the entire world. And in the next page, as Howler is being arrested, he screams, "I'm not making any goddamn weapons," even though in this situation, it makes no difference what he says, but he really does seem agitated by these accusations, which makes me wonder if Akka is merely a puppet CEO for Howler Co., and the real dirty work is being ordered by someone else, someone using the family's land and resources to conduct these backdoor geopolitical deals involving ballistic missiles. And again, we know nothing of Howler's parents, siblings, or if they're even alive, and this could have simply been a part of the business that was passed down to him. His parents were just kind of missing from his flashbacks and everything we learned about the family. So just imagine if there was an even more evil Howler that set their son up to take the fall, knowing he would indulge in a hedonistic lifestyle and remain ignorant to the hands-on work of the Howler Co. business and just enjoy the luxuries. As from everything we've seen from Howler's point of view, he does not point towards a savvy criminal mastermind who's got his hands deep in international affairs and military trade. He's in private jets, traveling to resort destinations, and almost always with a girl in his arms. So ever since this whole weapons manufacturing plotline was brought up, it's been extremely vague, and Howler himself, even in private, has never clearly admitted to such things happening. And I expect this to be something that opens up more in the second half of the part. So back on the yacht, as Howler is being dragged away by the Navy, he pleads to Jojo that he will sign the documents. He'll exchange the Howler land with the Banks land on Oahu, as he is finally faced with the reality and sees no other choice to ensure that his family is not taken to zero. And at least through this trade, there could be a through line somewhere of Howler still maintaining some authority within Hawaii. But as Jojo approaches with the documents, Howler summons his stand in its full manifestation and activates its ability. So first let's break down the design. It's a humanoid stand that wears a rock-like texture of Wallalai, or the lava rock, around itself like a coat, and a mask wrapped around its face. So being a manifestation of Akka's soul, the earthy texture the stand wears I see as a representation of his family lineage and their connection to the land of Hawaii, going back 8 generations, and is something Akka takes a great amount of pride in. After all, it's because of his family's power and the land they own that he's able to live this kind of lifestyle at all. In fact, all of Akka's authority and pleasures stem from this singular trait, to the point where I don't really know what kind of person he would be without the Howler name. You could say he would be naked or empty without the land. So looking at his stand, it wears that symbol of Howler's power. The other defining trait I see would be its long downward pointed ears with these large balls like bells attached to them. And while it might be a stretch, I want to point out its visual similarities to a jester, which kind of aligns with Howler's character so far, who's made a fool of himself at every turn, and is being used at everyone else's expense. JoJo's crew are stealing his fortune with the same lava rocks that built it and came from his property. His own employees are turning against him, the government is going after him for reasons he apparently has no knowledge of, or has failed to keep secret. So while I do see Akka as a main villain, especially after the stand reveal, which has that truly menacing presence to it that reminds me of a sea moon or a D4C, no other villain has been intentionally written to be so passive and careless, except maybe Part 3 Dio, which plays into this jester or fool stand design, but also makes Howler a vastly more interesting character, as from this point onwards, he will have his own journey that parallels the heroes, as Howler is now in what Johnny would call the negative, and I'm sure he'll make it his life's mission to reach zero again, which would be where he started at the beginning of the story. It's almost like the roles have been flipped for Howler and JoJo. Why did we even go after Howler in the first place? Because he had a vast fortune to steal from. Well, now the owner of this fortune is JoJo, or maybe Meryl, but Howler is at the bottom, and never really was the goal in all of this to make Hawaii a better place or to do good in the world. It was for money, so we'll just have to wait and see how our crew decide to use this fortune. And speaking on the parallels between JoJo and Howler, their stands have a striking visual similarity, both having their mouths covered by these Bane-style masks that wrap around their faces, but also could have similar abilities, as when Howler's stand is summoned, it releases mist, creating or manipulating the moisture in the air that's surrounds Howler and becomes the domain to control his power, kinda like November Rain's radius, and we see him drop a pen through the mist, which falls onto the ground but instantly flies upwards into an officer's neck. So just based on this single example, it would appear that the stand affects gravity to some degree, but is the inverse of JoJo's droplets, which force everything downwards, while Howler's mist reversed gravity and flung an object upwards with amplified force. But there could also be a time manipulation component to its ability as well, as within the mist, Howler just vanishes. The last time we see him, he's being shot at point blank range with his stand activated behind him. But in the next panel, it would appear that time skips. He's completely gone. I would have said maybe he used the mist as a distraction or a smokescreen to dip out, but in the final pages, we see that he left behind the land documents perfectly signed. But from the moment Howler summoned his stand to now, there was never a moment where he could have actually pulled out the documents and signed them, and definitely no one saw him do it. So something bizarre is at play here, but I doubt Araki would just do time stop or time skipping again, so I bet this is an ability that functions different mechanically, but is capable of producing a similar effect. But on the other hand, we could rule out time manipulation entirely, and maybe it was the mist he released that allowed Howler to control the pen, sign the documents, and escape. So something like he can control everything in contact with the mist and move objects between them. So the pen, once it touched the mist, would have been able to travel freely throughout it, allowing him to sign the documents remotely and attack the guard. And finally, Howler himself can travel through the mist to escape, either jump into somewhere completely different or still within the area, either going below deck or up inside one of the helicopters. But I think he had to have teleported in some way, considering the sheer amount of witnesses surrounding them. And that's a lingering question for our crew as well, as this chapter comes to a close, with JoJo claiming the signed documents and just leaving on a life raft with Key West. So this operation to arrest Howler was issued directly from the president, whoever that may be in the JoJoLands world, which ended with Howler escaping and a dead officer. It's hard to believe that they would have just let JoJo's crew and the lawyer leave, no questions asked, nothing about the other dead guys on the boat, so they could actually just be fleeing the scene of the crime here and escaping without being noticed somehow. And we'll have to deal with the aftermath of this whole event in the coming arc, like Barbara Ann calling JoJo being like, why the hell are you guys on the news? And that's why we're taking Key West, to keep us out of legal trouble. And I love how we just keep kidnapping the bad guys, taking them with with us, Lulu, and now Key West. So in the last chapter, I assumed that Liam was dead, but since we are sparing Key West, I think she'll be okay, as if we killed her girlfriend, she would probably want nothing to do with us, but if we allow them a second chance after working with Howler, and maybe we'll be able to use their connections legally and in law enforcement to help us out in the future. And the final big shocker this chapter is that the Lava Rock is destroyed, and by taking Howler's fortune, we've used up all of its magic power, which was being foreshadowed throughout this arc, but still very surprising to see, as this part so far has been so intrinsically linked to this object. The first arc was stealing it, and then we've been using it to go on these heists. So now, without it, we'll need to create a whole new structure for this story, which is exciting to get a change of pace as we've essentially completed the mission statement for JOJOLands. Jojo and his crew have become filthy rich. So now I think we'll start to get into the real meaning of filthy rich and the mechanisms of the world. Huge chapter, one of the best we've ever gotten, I think, and I want to hear your guys' theory of everything regarding Howler's stand, where he is, where the story goes from here, what its ability might be, anything regarding its design as well. So thank you all so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you all real soon in a new video. Peace.